Oysters and oyster populations are a really unique species. One, they have a lot of human value. They provide a lot of resources, both direct benefits to people as like a food resource, but also a large number of indirect benefits, whether it's modifying the habitats or providing habitat, and also indirect benefits from like filtering water. And some people think that oyster populations are critical components to maintaining good water quality in coastal communities. We're really fortunate in Florida, particularly on the west coast of Florida, on the Gulf of Mexico side, that we still have some of the largest oyster populations in the world. And our work, it was originally motivated from earlier research efforts and also a lot of discussion with longtime commercial fishermen about how they have, even in their lifetimes, over say the last 60 or 70 years, seen large changes in oyster populations along the west coast of Florida here. Specifically in our project, we first sought out to take a snapshot image of what the oyster communities look like along the west coast of Florida by using aerial photography to map these oyster reefs. And after we mapped out what these oyster reefs look like, we started ground truthing those images. And we sample oyster bars from inshore areas really close to the shoreline to the most outer sections of oyster bars that we can find. And we look at things like size structure to get an indication of the rates of recruitment. We look at the ratio of live to dead oysters that are on these bars, and we also look at density. So we estimate what the density per square meter of oysters, live and dead, are on these bars to try to get a relationship between what we see in the aerial imagery across about a 50-kilometer stretch, but also to try to stitch it together with some more historical information to try to put together, say, a 30 or 40-year history of what's gone on with oyster resources, in this part of the coast. Tremendous amounts of research goes on oyster populations, like in areas like in the Chesapeake and on the west coast and stuff in North Carolina. But in those areas, oyster populations have already been tremendously impacted. Here we have this chance to go in and study these habitats that haven't been really impacted. And we also knew that there's a lot of economic value in these oyster resources that can be readily identified, which isn't, from a natural resources perspective, something you can always do. Like, we know how much oysters sell for, and if we had an estimate of how many oysters were in that area, then you can actually put a monetary value on what that resource would be valued at. The learning that can take place through research in an area like the Big Bend to inform restoration activities that take place elsewhere can, one, make those restoration activities more effective. And I think anytime that we can do research that addresses really interesting ecological questions, but at the same time provides information that our partners can use to make decisions, is really what motivates me.